During roll call, the substitute teacher read my name, looked up, went pale, then said loud enough for everyone to hear, "That's impossible. You shouldn't exist." 28 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. The substitute teacher was frozen at her desk, attendance sheet trembling in her hands. Her face had gone from normal to pale, to something I can only describe as haunted, like she was seeing a ghost. "That's impossible," she whispered. Then louder, loud enough for the whole class to hear, "You shouldn't exist." The room went dead silent. I sat there in third period English, 17 years old, completely blindsided by a woman I'd never met in my life. "Excuse me?" I managed. The attendance sheet slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. "Your birthday. When were you born?" "March 14th, 2007. Why does that? What hospital?" "St. Mary's." "Look, what's this about?" She backed up until she hit the whiteboard, knocked over an eraser. Didn't even notice. "I need to speak with the principal, right now." And then she just left. Walked out the door and left 28 juniors sitting there in stunned silence. Marcus, my best friend since middle school, leaned over from the desk next to mine. "Bro, what the hell was that?" I had no idea, but I was about to find out, and it would destroy everything I thought I knew about myself. My name is Connor Hayes, or at least that's what I've always believed. I'm 17 years old, junior at Lincoln High School in Portland, Oregon. Normal life, normal family, normal everything. My dad, Michael Hayes, works in IT for a healthcare company. My mom, Jennifer, is a part-time real estate agent. I have a younger sister, Emma, who's 14 and annoying in the way all younger sisters are supposed to be. We live in a 3-bedroom house in a suburb where nothing ever happens. I play soccer in the fall, run track in the spring, and spend most of my free time playing video games with Marcus and dreaming about college. I'd been living this completely ordinary life for 17 years when a substitute teacher looked at my name on an attendance sheet and told me I shouldn't exist. Let me explain what happened next. The intercom crackled about 20 minutes after she left. "Connor Hayes, please report to the main office immediately." The whole class went, "Ooh," like I was in trouble. Classic high school. Someone's life is imploding and everyone thinks it's entertainment. I gathered my stuff with hands that had started trembling for reasons I didn't understand. Some instinct, maybe. Some part of my brain that knew something was very wrong before the rest of me caught up. The hallway was empty. My footsteps echoed off the lockers. The walk to the main office felt like it took an hour. When I got there, the secretary, Mrs. Patterson, who I'd known since freshman year, wouldn't look at me, just pointed toward the principal's door without saying a word. That's when I knew this wasn't normal trouble. I opened the door. Principal Morrison was there. So was the substitute teacher, and sitting in chairs along the wall, looking like someone had just told them the world was ending. My parents, both of them, in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. My mom's eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. My dad looked like he'd aged 10 years since I'd seen him at breakfast. "Sit down, Connor," Principal Morrison said quietly. "What's going on? Why are Mom and Dad here?" Nobody answered. I sat in the empty chair. The substitute teacher was staring at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Finally, she spoke. "My name is Dr. Elizabeth Brennan. I'm retired now, but 18 years ago I was an OB-GYN at St. Mary's Hospital." She paused. "I was your mother's doctor." My mom made this sound, halfway between a sob and a gasp. "I delivered your baby on March 12th, 2007, Dr. Brennan continued, looking directly at my mother. "A boy, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, born at 2:47 a.m. My birthday is March 14th, I said. "Not the 12th. "I know." Dr. Brennan's voice cracked. "Because the baby I delivered on March 12th didn't survive. He was stillborn. I checked for a heartbeat 3 times. There was nothing." The room started spinning. "I held him," she continued. "I signed the death certificate myself. That baby didn't survive, Mrs. Hayes. I'm certain of it." My mother was crying now, full sobs that shook her whole body. "That's not possible," I heard myself say. "I'm right here." "I know." Dr. Brennan's eyes were wet. "That's why I panicked when I saw your name on the attendance sheet. Connor Hayes, born March 2007, St. Mary's Hospital. It can't be a coincidence." I looked at my dad. He was gripping the armrest of his chair so hard his knuckles were white. "There has to be an explanation," he said. "Some kind of mix-up in the records." "What happened after the delivery?" Dr. Brennan asked. After I told you the baby didn't make it?" My mom could barely speak. "We were in the hospital for 3 days. We held our baby. He was so small, so still. They took him away and we couldn't stop crying. I wanted to die." Dad put his arm around her. "Then on the 3rd day," Mom continued, her voice breaking, "a nurse came in. She was carrying a baby. She said there'd been a terrible mistake with the records, that our son was actually alive, that he'd been in the NICU the whole time, that someone had mixed up the files." "What nurse?" Dr. Brennan leaned forward. "What was her name?" "I don't remember. Mom was shaking. "We were so destroyed, then suddenly so grateful. We didn't ask questions. We just wanted our baby back. We just wanted our son. There was no mix-up," Dr. Brennan said firmly. "I handled everything personally. The baby I delivered died. I've never forgotten that night. The way you screamed, Mrs. Hayes. The way your husband collapsed in the hallway. I had nightmares about it for years." "Then who is he?" Dad's voice came out strangled, barely recognizable. If he's not," everyone looked at me. I felt like I was going to throw up. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "You're my parents. I have baby pictures. I look like Dad. Everyone says I have his eyes. Lots of people look similar," Dr. Brennan said quietly. quietly. Principal Morrison cleared his throat. I think we need to contact St. Mary's Hospital immediately. Request the original records. And possibly the police. The police? Mom's voice went shrill with panic. Mrs. Hayes, if what Dr. Brennan is saying is true, then someone gave you a baby that wasn't yours. He paused. That's kidnapping. The word hung in the air like poison. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, studied my face like he was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? He whispered. I'm Connor, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure anymore. They sent me home early, not with my parents, with a school counselor, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, who'd been called in for crisis support. My parents stayed behind to talk with Principal Morrison and start making phone calls. Dr. Okonkwo drove me home in her Prius. She kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, like she was afraid I might shatter. How are you feeling, Connor? I don't know. That's understandable. This is a lot to process. Am I still me? If I'm not their son, am I still me? She was quiet for a moment. You're still you. Whatever the biology says, whatever the records show, you're still the same person you were this morning. But I'm not, though. Am I? This morning I knew who I was. Now I don't know anything. She didn't have an answer for that. The DNA test happened the next day. Detective Patricia Oyalaran from the Portland Police Bureau came to our house with a forensic technician. 32 years on the force, she told us. Specialist in missing persons and child abduction cases. We're treating this as a potential kidnapping investigation, she explained, while the technician swabbed the inside of my cheek. Until we have evidence to the contrary. Kidnapping? Mom looked like she might pass out. We didn't kidnap anyone. A nurse handed us a baby and said he was ours. I understand, Mrs. Hayes. You're not suspects. But if someone took you son, your biological son, and replaced him with another child, that person committed multiple felonies. We need to find out what happened. They swabbed my parents too. Dad, Mom, even Emma, who was crying in the corner because nobody would explain what was going on. Results will take about a week, Detective Oyalaran said. In the meantime, we're pulling records from St. Mary's. Everything from March 2007. Staff lists, patient files, security footage if it still exists. It's been 18 years, Dad said. You really think you'll find anything? You'd be surprised what hospitals keep. And if there's a pattern here, if this nurse did what we think she did, there might be other families, other cases, other families who thought they had a child but didn't. Other kids like me who didn't know who they really were. The week of waiting was the longest of my life. I went to school, tried to act normal, failed completely. Everyone knew something had happened with the substitute teacher. Rumors spread like wildfire. By Thursday, I'd heard at least 6 different versions of the story. Everything from Connor's adopted and just found out, to the substitute used to date his dad, to he's in witness protection. Marcus was the only one who knew the truth. This is insane, he said at lunch on Friday. Like movie-level insane. What if you're actually like a secret prince or something? Not helping, Marcus. Sorry, I just don't know what to say. Neither do I. At home, things were worse. My parents tried to act normal, but I could see it in their eyes, the way they looked at me, the doubt, the question they couldn't stop asking themselves. Is this our son? Emma knew something was wrong, but not what. She kept asking why everyone was acting weird. Mom finally told her I was having health tests and left it at that. I spent most of the week in my room staring at old photo albums, baby pictures, first birthday, Christmas mornings, family vacations, 17 years of memories that might all be built on a lie. I did look like my dad. Same eyes, same jawline. Everyone always said so. But I also looked like my mom. Same nose, same smile. Or did I? Was I seeing what I wanted to see? What I'd been told to see my whole life? I stared at my reflection until it stopped looking familiar. The results came on a Tuesday. Detective Oyalaran showed up at 6:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was staring at the clock on the microwave, dreading the knock that I knew was coming. We all sat in the living room. Mom, Dad, Emma, me. Detective Oyalaran and a woman she introduced as Dr. Sandra Mbeki, a genetic counselor from the State Crime Lab. I want to preface this by saying that what we found is complicated, Dr. Mbeki began. The results are not what anyone expected. Just tell us, Dad said. Is Connor our son or not? Dr. Mbeki opened her folder. Genetically speaking, Connor is your son, Mr. Hayes. A wave of relief swept through the room. Mom grabbed my hand. Dad exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a week. But, Dr. Mbeki continued, he is not Mrs. Hayes's biological child. Silence. What? Mom whispered. The DNA confirms paternal relationship between Connor and Michael Hayes, but there is no genetic connection between Connor and Jennifer Hayes. I looked at my mom. She looked like she'd been slapped. That's impossible, she said. I gave birth to him. I was there. I felt him. I felt him inside me for 9 months. I pushed for 14 hours. He came out of my body. The baby you delivered died, Mrs. Hayes. Dr. Brennan was correct about that. The child you took home is not that baby. Then where did he come from? Dad's voice was shaking. If he's my son but not Jennifer's, how is that possible? I would never. He couldn't finish the sentence. Detective Oyalaran stepped in. We believe we've identified the source. Our investigation into St. Mary's records uncovered something disturbing. She pulled out a photograph. A woman in nurse's scrubs, dark hair, kind smile, the kind of face you'd trust with your newborn. This This is Margaret Holloway. She worked in labor and delivery at St. Mary's from 2004 to 2008. She disappeared in August 2008 and has never been found. We believe she's the nurse who brought Connor to your room, Detective Oyelaran continued. And we believe she's responsible for at least 3 other cases of infant substitution. Substitution? Mom's voice was barely audible. She was taking babies, Mrs. Hayes, taking them from parents who had healthy births and giving them to parents whose babies had died. The room was spinning again. But why would she do that? I asked. What possible reason? We don't know yet, but we found records indicating that Margaret Holloway had a son of her own, born March 12, 2007, at a different hospital across town. The father is listed as unknown. March 12, the day Dr. Brennan delivered my parents' stillborn son. We ran DNA analysis on samples from that case, Dr. Mbeki said. Comparing the infant's hospital footprint records with genetic markers, we could extrapolate. She paused. Connor, the man listed on your birth certificate, Michael Hayes, is your biological father, but Margaret Holloway is almost certainly your biological mother. I don't remember the next few hours. I know I screamed. I know I ran upstairs and locked my door. I know Mom was sobbing, and Dad was yelling, and Emma was crying, and Detective Oyelaran was trying to explain things that couldn't be explained. Margaret Holloway, my mother, a woman who stole babies from grieving parents and gave them to other grieving parents and then vanished off the face of the earth. She had an affair with my dad or something. He claimed he didn't remember her, claimed he'd never had an affair, but the DNA didn't lie. Somewhere, somehow, they'd been together, and she'd gotten pregnant, and then she'd given me away to the same woman whose baby she'd helped deliver dead. Was it guilt? Was it some twisted form of reparation? Was she insane? I didn't know, couldn't know, because Margaret Holloway had been missing for 18 years. The investigation exploded. 3 other families came forward within a week. 3 other cases of babies who died, only to be miraculously returned after a mix-up was discovered. 3 other kids, now teenagers and young adults, whose entire lives were built on a crime. The media descended on Portland like vultures. Hospital baby swap scandal, 4 families, 18 years of lies. Nurse Margaret Holloway, angel of mercy or monster. DNA reveals shocking truth about Portland teen. My face was everywhere. My name, my story. I couldn't leave the house without cameras. Couldn't check my phone without 100 notifications. Couldn't exist without being reminded that my existence was a crime scene. Dr. Okonkwo, the school counselor, became my therapist, 3 times a week at first, then daily when it got really bad. You're experiencing an identity crisis compounded by public trauma, she told me during one session. Your sense of self has been fundamentally disrupted. It's natural to feel lost. I don't feel lost, I said. I feel erased, like Connor Hayes never really existed, like I'm just a ghost wearing his face. Connor Hayes exists. You exist. The circumstances of your birth don't change that. They change everything. They change facts. They don't change you. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But every time I looked in the mirror, I saw Margaret Holloway's eyes staring back. They found her in February. 18 years of searching, and she'd been living 40 miles away the entire time. Different name, different hair, different life. Margaret Holloway, now calling herself Linda Morrison, was working as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic in Salem, Oregon, living in a small apartment, keeping to herself. She was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Detective Oyelaran called to tell us she's in custody, being transported to Portland for processing. She's agreed to speak with investigators, but she's requesting something first. What? Dad asked. She wants to see Connor. I said yes. Everyone told me not to. My parents, Dr. Okonkwo, even Detective Oyelaran seemed hesitant. She's manipulative, the detective warned. Whatever she tells you, remember. This woman committed serious crimes. She hurt a lot of families, including yours. I need to know why, I said. I need to understand. 3 days later, I sat across a table from my biological mother for the first time. She looked older than her photographs, 53 now. Gray streaks in her dark hair, lines around eyes that looked exactly like mine. There was a guard in the corner, a 2-way mirror, recording equipment, and Margaret Holloway, in orange scrubs, staring at me like I was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. You look just like your father, she said softly. Who is he? Because Michael Hayes says he doesn't remember you. She smiled sadly. He wouldn't. It was one night. A hospital fundraiser. He was having problems with his wife. They were separated at the time. We connected. And then you got pregnant. And then I got pregnant. So you, what? Waited until his wife had a baby? Waited until that baby died? And then you gave me to them instead? She flinched. It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. I didn't. Then explain it to me. Because I've spent 6 months trying to understand, and I can't. She was quiet for a long time. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Single mother. No support. The father was married. I thought about ending it, but I couldn't. You were already real to me. She looked down at her hands. I worked in L&D. Every day I watched happy families take home their babies, and I knew I couldn't give you what they could. I couldn't give you a father, a stable home, all the things you deserved. So you decided to give me to strangers? Not strangers. Your father's family. Her voice cracked. When I realized Michael Hayes was the father, when I looked up his file and saw that his wife was pregnant, due the same time as me, I thought it was fate. I thought thought maybe you could have the life I couldn't give you, with your real father, in a real family. But their baby died. I know. I wasn't there for the delivery, but I heard, and I thought if I just gave you to them, everyone would win. They'd have a baby, you'd have a family, and I'd know you were safe. You committed multiple felonies. I saved lives. Her voice was suddenly fierce. Do you know what happens to parents who lose babies? Half of them divorce. Some of them never recover. I gave those families hope. I gave them a reason to keep going. You gave them lies. I gave them you. She was crying now. I gave them my son, the most precious thing I had, because I loved you too much to watch you grow up in foster care or poverty or you don't get to decide that. I was standing now, shouting. You don't get to play God with people's lives. Those parents, the Hayeses, they mourned a baby they never knew died. They raised a child thinking he was theirs, and now everything is ruined, all because you thought you knew best. She wilted, sagged in her chair like the fight had left her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry it turned out this way. I never meant. I just wanted you to be happy. I looked at this woman, my mother, a stranger, someone who'd shaped my entire existence without my knowledge or consent. I was happy, I said, before I knew the truth. Now I don't know what I am. I turned and walked out. I never saw her again. Margaret Holloway, Linda Morrison, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of kidnapping, 4 counts of filing false documents, and 1 count of interference with a dead body. She was sentenced to 15 years. The judge called it a profound violation of parental rights and institutional trust. He said she'd caused immeasurable psychological harm to 4 families who may never fully recover. I didn't attend the sentencing, couldn't watch. Just read about it afterward in the newspaper articles that quoted me without my permission. The other families sued St. Mary's Hospital. Massive settlement. Millions of dollars split 4 ways. I told my parents, the Hayeses, to take my share. You raised me, I said, for 17 years. You loved me. That should count for something. Mom cried, hugged me for a long time. You're still our son, she said. No matter what any test says, no matter who gave birth to you, you're our Connor. Nothing changes that. I wanted to believe her. I'm still working on it. It's been 2 years now. I'm 19, freshman at Oregon State, studying psychology, ironically, trying to understand how people become who they are, how identity forms, how trauma shapes us. The media moved on a long time ago. There are new scandals, new tragedies, new stories to consume. I'm old news, but I still think about it every day. I think about Margaret Holloway in her prison cell, about whether she regrets it, about whether she truly believed she was doing the right thing. I think about the Hayeses, my parents, the only parents I've ever known, and how hard they've worked to rebuild our relationship. The family therapy sessions, the awkward dinners, the slow, painful process of learning to trust again. I think about my biological father who swears he doesn't remember the affair but whose DNA doesn't lie, who looks at me sometimes with this expression I can't read, guilt maybe, or grief, or both. I think about the baby who was supposed to be Connor Hayes, the one who died on March 12, 2007, the one who's buried in a cemetery across town with my name on his headstone. I visited the grave once, stood there for an hour, not sure what to say. I'm sorry, I finally whispered. I'm sorry you didn't get to live. I'm sorry I took your place. I'm sorry none of this makes sense. The headstone didn't answer.